2025 has been a trying year for workers across the country. From mass retrenchments to protests calling for decent pay across industries. We take a look at all the things that Labour has had to deal with General Secretary for the South African Federation of Trade Unions. That's Zwelinzima Vavi, who joins us now. Babu Vavi, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Let's just talk with what might have been a year that 2025 was highlighted as struggle, breakthroughs, and maybe even renewals. How was the year for SAFTU itself? And have you thought that maybe there was a few changes that were positive?
Well, it was a difficult year indeed. The determination has to be looking at the difficulties through what is happening in the economy. It's an economy that has been on stagnation since after 2008 world economic crisis. It's an economy that is bleeding jobs at an alarming rate. It's an economy that is deindustrializing and hollowing out the manufacturing capacity of South Africa, whilst we have about 22 to 27% of our manufacturing capacity idling and unused. It's an economy with high interest rates regime that makes it impossible for workers to spend any of their disposable income, or small, medium, macro enterprises to enter into the real economy. It's an economy whose labor market, and in terms of regulations, continue to be under attack from the government, that is in response to the demands of the small business elites that are having the best of times in the past 31 years of democracy, are demanding more deregulation, more labor market flexibility, and therefore meaning removing the most basic protections workers enjoy under the current difficulties. It's a difficulty where we have seen the collapse, a situation where we have seen the collapse of basic services due to the weight of austerity measures implemented by the government, where health, education, policing, even the army are taking a massive strain as a result of budget cuts. So it's been a very difficult year, but yet it shows us that a struggle even within that very negative environment does produce results, and we have quite a number of good results that we have shown.
Yeah, why do you think this deindustrialization is happening so much? This weaning off from industries that were the backbone of the country. You've seen the influence of mining decay and drop off. You've seen the influence of manufacturing drop off quite considerably as well. Why do you think that's happening right now? And why is government pretty much defunding it and having all these austerity measures?
Well, even before we started the process of restructuring, or so-called transformation of the economy, way back in 1993 and 1994, our government started to show signs of swallowing the medicine of neoliberalism from the IMF, World Bank, the World Trade Organization. And in fact, the government removed the tariffs protection even faster than required and demanded by the WTO. They were given a 10-year period, and they were slaughtering and removing those tariffs within a period of 6, 7, 8 years. And the result of that is dumping, mainly from East Asian economy, China in particular, that have now moved from a situation where all our light manufacturing goods have been slaughtered. Our clothing, textile, and footwear industries have been decimated. And that because of corruption in our borders, the fact that these unscrupulous traders from the East are able to move their goods and dump them into South Africa without paying the necessary custom duties at our borders have made our situation even worse. So we started to deindustrialize at an alarming rate as a result of that. If you look at the figures, Arabile, they will tell you that whereas in 1994, the manufacturing sector contributed up to 22% to the GDP. It's now down to 11, 12%. And that if you look at the second quarter of Statistics South Africa report, it tells us that only 9% of the jobs now are in the manufacturing sector, which is a total disaster.
Yeah, one must look at those numbers and shudder and be fearful, really. During May Day this year, a lot of the unions were speaking about trying to re-energize the labor federations themselves, the unions overall. Do you think that's happened at all, though? Because while some are seeking elections to go off at elections alone, some still, membership is just completely falling off. Do you think that that membership is linked to this deindustrialization, or are just unions no longer fit for purpose in today's day and age and the industrial nation we currently live in?
The main crisis facing the South African trade union movement is fragmentation, disunity, and mislead by the leadership at the top. For example, May Day should have been celebrated jointly between all the 4 federations that are organizing and have a presence at NEDLEC, which is COSATU, FEDUSA, NACTU, and SAFTU. And yet we have separate May Day. COSATU continued with the tradition of having a tripartite May Day somewhere else. SAFTU had marches and demonstrations somewhere else. FEDUSA have rallies somewhere else. That's a betrayal of the statement that workers continue to make everywhere, that they need unity. And May Day should have not only be a joint May Day between of the 4 federations. We should have continued from March working together against the austerity programs. We should have celebrated the Youth Month, highlighting the crisis, the catastrophe of unemployment facing the young people. We should have celebrated the August month, celebrating the struggles of our women comrades together. Their strides that they have made, as well as the setbacks that they have suffered. We should have seen a year of unity. And that's why in our statement, we highlighted the fact that we see the recent public spat between SAFTU and COSATU as actually a setback. It means that the potential of unifying the trade union movement is moving further and further away from us. The dream of even establishing a confederation between the 4 federations is disappearing in front of our eyes, let alone to talk about one country, one federation.
So you think that unions in many ways are facing an existential time? They could cease to exist if they don't at least come together in some way?
Look, the trade unions remain the biggest organized civil society organization, organizing over 3 million workers. No other formation have that type of membership. No political party, no religious organization, no one. It is only the trade unions. And that's why perhaps we are even more critical than we should be on other formations, including political parties. We're focusing on our criticism. Our focus has to be on the state of the trade union movement, because only the trade unions can revive the country, such as South Africa. Only when they wake up and smell the coffee that their disunity is only helping the other side in class term to continue to exploit workers at will, and whilst they can hardly even raise a finger to protest against the ongoing slaughter and the brutalization of workers through outsourcing, labor brokering that is continuing, despite the fact that the Constitutional Court has given us a reprieve that no worker can work for more than 3 months without being declared as the employee of the employer that is benefiting from the labor. So we are spoiling the chances. We are not taking the advantages. We're not moving as we should be moving to ensure that we are about workers and not about the leadership of the unions.
Let me just ask this as a final question. And I asked this already, I suppose, but I'm not sure I got the answer, and I just want to get again to this. Are unions still serving the interests of today's labor environment, especially when you think of young workers who may be in things like tech, in services, even in the gig economy and gig platforms? Are unions still able to fit that purpose, or are they still sitting with the older workforces, which still is a large workforce, but may not be fit for the times as they continue to change? What are your thoughts?
Not anywhere close to their real potential. Look, if you look at the trade union movement in terms of what they have been to South African workers after the 1973 Durban strikes, right up to 1979 when they won the right to recognition of black workers.
I'm wondering there, I think we may have lost the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, Zwelinzima Vavi, and I think that final question was perhaps my greatest concern around labor unions, labor federations. Zwelinzima, just very finally, I think you were still responding. Sorry, we got cut off there. Just wanted to ask if you could complete that answer, because I think it's still a very important one.
Well, I mean, the rural areas, it shows you the once again, the divide between the urban and the rural.
Yeah.
There's a battle here with the productivity where I am. But the point I was making is that the 1973 up to 2007 were the golden years of the trade union movement. Beyond 2007, where we already had about 40% of all workers belonging to unions, was perhaps the beginning of the crisis of representation, of relevance, and leading to the Marikana workers, so Marikana massacre, which was itself a battle of neglect on the part of the trade unions, right up to the point where today unions only represent about 24% only of all workers in the workplace. So your crisis is that we have lost the best of our traditions. Our tradition, number one, was always about servicing, protecting, worker control, democracy, training of leadership, political and technical trade union training. Even though we have now billions idling in the sectors being used by the tenderpreneurs to fatten their own nest, workers are continuously being denied the right to training because our eyes have been moved out of the ball.
Yeah.
And it seems that we're more concerned about who's going to be the next president, who's going to be the next chancellor, instead of focusing on the task at hand, which is the protection of workers' interests in the workplaces as well as in their communities.
I can't thank you enough for all the assessments, all the thoughts and all the ideals you've given us throughout this year. So we want to thank you from Newzroom Afrika for being a part of our coverage as well throughout the year, but also just sharing the difficulties that indeed are faced by labor unions moving forward and moving beyond and moving into a local government election year next year, which is going to be very important in how those are portrayed. Zwelinzima Vavi, the General Secretary of SAFTU.